Well, we're back with another year of releases from Apple. This time it is the 16 Pro, and as a filmmaker, obviously the portion that I cared the most about was the new camera system. And this year, it's funny. Apple had some jokes, especially when it came to what makes something cinematic. Now, for the most part of this video, I'm going to be focusing on the 16 Pro Max and Pro because that's where Apple throws most of the hardware and software. But what's funny is that they actually threw some software over on the original 16 as well, which I thought was really interesting. So let's actually kick it off with the thing that they do have in common, which is the new button. Now, this new button is 100% designed with the camera in mind, but what's really interesting is all the different functionalities that it has. Now, this is not the first phone to put a dedicated shutter button on it, and Apple has in the past been able to use one of their volume rockers as your dedicated capture button, but now this button can do a lot. First off, it can actually launch your camera mode, which you can use to actually take video or photo, but you could also kind of use it with Siri with Apple Intelligence, which is like a whole another thing. But the thing that I like about this thing is that you can also swipe through and make different adjustments. You can do things like zoom in on your camera, switching from different lenses. You can also go ahead and adjust things like focus. And it seems like Apple's not just going to be saving this button for their own UI, but they're also going to be allowing third-party developers in order to use this thing as well, which I personally think is amazing. Now, personally, using this button is going to make the iPhone feel more like a traditional camera than ever before because of the placement of where the button is and the fact that it has haptic feedback to let you know whenever you're pressing in on it, and it knows the difference between a slight press or a full press. So you can do things like half hold down the shutter like you would do it on a traditional camera and then grab focus and then push all the way down to actually capture your image. This is insane to see this being done on an iPhone. Now, speaking of taking great images on an iPhone, let's go ahead and talk about the new camera. Now, Apple did go ahead and allow you to keep that same 48 megapixel sensor that we had from previous iPhones, but what I do like is the fact that now we're getting a 48 megapixel sensor on the ultra wide. Now, this is probably the biggest upgrade that I'm most excited about when it comes to this camera because the ultra wide was definitely the one that was currently in last place. I mean, the ultra wide camera, although probably my favorite one to use, was the lowest quality of the bunch. One of the biggest issues I ran into with the ultra wide was the actual low light performance, and this one is supposed to be better in low light, but honestly, I'm a little skeptical. The main reason being is that in traditional cameras, if you want to have a better low light performing camera, you don't add more megapixels. That's not how you solve that issue, but this one is bumping up to 48 megapixels to match the main camera. But also, if you're someone like me who bought the max version of the 15 just so you could get that 5x zoom, well, now you'll be happy to know that you don't have to go up to the max. You can get the regular 16 Pro and still get that 5x zoom. And this is probably one of the best upgrades that Apple has ever put when it comes to the actual camera focal lengths that they put into their system. I use the 5x zoom all the time, whether it's my son playing baseball or I'm actually using it for production reasons. Using the 5x zoom is fantastic. So if you're someone who didn't go with the max, you didn't have that 5x zoom and maybe you're a little nervous about it, trust me, you're going to absolutely love it. It not only gives you some really good depth, but it does allow you to drastically be able to switch between your different focal lengths and see that difference in your production. And trust me, it levels up the shoot every single time. Now, another big update that we got this year is the fact that the 16 Pros can now shoot at 4K up to 120 frames per second. And this is where Apple definitely threw in their joke. I know there's this joke that goes around in the world of filmmaking that shooting something in slow motion instantly makes it more cinematic. And Apple definitely hit this right on the head with their cinematic joke. But I'm not gonna lie, the 4K 120 looked pretty good. Now, the one thing about shooting in 4K 120 that most people don't know is that in order to get your shutter speed correct, you have to double it compared to the frame rate. And Apple tends to have really cranked shutters. So it's going to be interesting to see what the 4K 120 actually looks like. But the one thing that I did like when they showcased the 4K 120 is that you can change the playback speed on the phone. So when you're actually playing back your footage, you can choose that when it was shot in 4K 120, you want it to play back in your camera roll at 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second, or even down to 24 frames per second. Now, Apple has continued to bring over the ability to shoot in ProRes on the phone, but this is where some of my questions started to come up, and I'm so happy that Apple addressed them. The biggest one was the fact that if you are shooting 4K 120 in ProRes, for that matter, these file sizes are going to be massive. Now, yes, Apple has allowed you in the past to be able to go out USB-C directly into an external hard drive, but Apple, using the new Pro chip inside of the 16 Pro, can now actually transfer that data even faster. So this means that if you do happen to record any of this high-speed data, or you're using ProRes and you're going directly into your camera, now transferring those files off of your camera, or phone for that matter, transferring those data off of your iPhone. Wow, that's crazy. I just called the phone a camera because that's just how my brain works. Being able to transfer the data off of your iPhone onto an external hard drive or onto your computer is going to happen much faster. And quite honestly, this was an upgrade that I think Apple really should have had last year. I mean, already the fact that you can shoot ProRes even only up to 30 frames per second internally on the phone, and then trying to get those files off of the phone onto your computer or onto a hard drive, that process took forever. But now having the ability to transfer that data off your iPhone even faster makes it an even more usable phone for filming videos. Now, I've got a quick confession. When it comes to filmmaking, and especially using really any camera or any phone for that matter, my least favorite part of the process is audio. Audio is a nightmare for me. I don't know what it is. I'm tone deaf, call it what you want, but capturing high quality audio has always been my ongoing battle. And Apple is even helping with that process. Now, granted, it's not going to match up to professional sound mixing, but it is nice to see that Apple is starting to look into audio, especially as they continue to build these Pro phones for filmmakers. One of the cool new features is the fact that now you can actually capture spatial audio when shooting video. And Apple has also said that using some of their new technology that will be coming very soon, that they're going to allow you to be able to sort of isolate sounds from the audio that the iPhone is capturing. So for example, you'll be able to tap through different modes and different settings to be able to determine how you want that audio to be played back in your finished video. Now, currently the ones that they have on there is standard, in-frame, studio, and cinematic. And I personally am really interested to see how this actually works, because the truth is that most people who shoot video on their phone and they're going to be turning that into some type of a film or a project, they're probably not going to edit it on the phone themselves. So I wonder if this metadata is going to transfer over to your phone, and we're going to see an upgrade into programs like Final Cut Pro 10 to be able to actually switch between these different audio modes. It is super interesting. I like what Apple is doing, but I just wonder how is it going to be implemented in an actual workflow. Now, another thing that I thought was super interesting, although not really covered in the video side of things, but covered more in the photography side of things, is what Apple is doing with color. Now, when it comes to the color within an iPhone, let's just say I haven't been incredibly excited. I typically shoot all of my videos in log, so that way I can kind of change the color the way I need to in post. But it seems like Apple is actually learning, and they're actually going to be changing their color pipeline, specifically looking at skin tones. Apple did an entire demonstration when it comes to photography, looking at how it handles skin tones. And what I really loved, selfishly, is that they used a person of color to be able to demonstrate this. I have seen it many times in the past where a lot of cameras will just look at a person of color and just see them as shadows. And so the way that the color affects the shadows just gets applied to the skin tone, which then makes the skin tone not look very natural. But what's really cool here is that you can actually see, as Apple was swiping through these different use cases and different presets, that it's actually holding on to the skin tones, which selfishly I think is amazing, and I'm happy to see Apple finally making an upgrade in this area. And to wrap things up, let's talk about the star of the show, or what Apple was hoping the star of the show would be, and that is Apple Intelligence. Now, when it comes to Apple Intelligence, you can tell from the presentation that Apple was leaning into it heavy. And one of the things I thought was really interesting was how they were also showcasing how professionals could use Apple Intelligence in these new phones by being able to take pictures while doing location scouts, or being able to open up the camera app and get information directly from it. You know, I think Apple Intelligence has is a huge hill to sort of climb, but if it is able to climb it, I think a lot of people are going to find tons of value in it. Even personally, I know one of the things that Apple showcased was just the ability to search through your Photos app by asking Siri, because it had information across all of your images. I think as an editor, being able to search through B-roll in this very organic way is going to be so helpful. And if all you have to do is upload your files directly into your iPhone, or as Apple would probably hope you did, capture those images directly on your iPhone, and then being able to sort through them and find the exact shots you're looking for your edit, trust me, this is going to save a ton of creators way more time, which will ultimately mean that creators have more time to do the thing we all love doing, which is creating. But this has been my reaction sort of to the new iPhone Pros. I actually am really excited about them. Yes, I do plan on upgrading because I have to test that new sensor, but as someone who already owns a 15 Pro, honestly, I don't know if it's 100% worth the upgrade, but I think that if you are someone who has maybe a 13 or older, this could absolutely be worth the upgrade. One thing that makes me super interested is the fact that Apple is saying, especially for the Pro models, that they're offering up to $1,000 for a upgrade or for trading in your phone, which means this might be a no-brainer depending on which iPhone you have. They're taking iPhones 12 and newer, so yeah, I'm definitely going to look to see what my phone's value is to see if I can't upgrade it and maybe get a better new phone. And who knows, it'll probably run Apple Intelligence better than the one that I currently have. But let me know your thoughts on this. Do you care? Do you think that iPhones are really starting to impede on the cinema world or the filmmaking world? I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button on your way out, because I will be getting this phone and doing a full review as a filmmaker, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.